Hi witches, in today's video we are going to be talking about symbols. I absolutely love symbols, they are so interesting. We actually use symbols all day long, perhaps without even realising it, and so I'm going to explain to you what a symbol is, how it can be used and how we use them in modern witchcraft and paganism. Welcome back everybody, thank you for being here, thank you for watching. I'm Ren, I'm the Cemetery Witch, and today I have chosen a topic I absolutely adore. It is symbols. Symbols are really interesting things, and as I said in the intro, we use them all day long. So a symbol is a mark, a sign or a word that indicates, represents or signifies an idea, an object or a relationship. All communication and data processing are achieved through the use of symbols. So when I say that symbols are used all day long, that is because words are symbols. When I say the word cat to you, that means something to you. You know what a cat is. So they're absolutely fascinating. Symbols can be things like gestures. So like this, for example, it can be a visual image, it can be a word, it can be an idea, it can even be a sound. So let's give you some examples of symbols. So for example, probably the most common one that I can think of is a red heart. When we see a red heart, I imagine that most of us associate that with love, probably above and beyond it being a heart of a red colour, we think of love. When we see an arrow, we generally know that to be a direction. We would associate a skull with death. And when we see the rune Algiz or Elhaz, whichever name you would like to give it, we associate that with the idea of protection. So very useful symbols. It can get quite complex. There are 7 symbols, 7 different types. And the reason I thought I would go through these with you and explain what they all are is because, say for the last one, which is a logo, well, no, actually, maybe you could use that. You could use them all in your Magick. So I am going to need my notes to help me with this because I do not have the best memory and some of them have quite similar names, but I thought I would describe to you the 7 different types of symbol before we go into how we can use them, how we can apply them. So going from the top, we have pictograms / pictographs, ideograms, icons, rebus, phonograms, typograms and logos. And as I was doing a little bit of research for this video and I came across this classification of symbols, I was thinking like how brilliant they are and how they could be used. All you need for Magick is, well, not all you need, but imagination and creativity. That is a major part of it. So I thought if we went through these, you can go back and watch this video and make some notes, but I thought these would be really great for Magick because symbols and sigils, they work on your unconscious, they work on the unconscious mind, they help to transfer those ideas and those concepts deep into our brains. So I think that these are absolutely brilliant for creating Magick with. So let's go from the top. So first we've got pictograms. Also called pictographs. These are public symbols. They convey a message or an instruction. So the first one that springs to mind is the men's and the women's toilets. They will have a symbol on the door, and so that they are not conveying a name, they are conveying an instruction or an idea or a concept, and that is that men use this toilet or women use this toilet, or that this is a disabled toilet. It points something out to you, something you need to know, something you need to do, rather than it being the name of something. I mean, yes, the sign on the disabled toilet does point out that that is the disabled toilet, that name, but it's more the instruction, the idea, the concept, what should be happening. So that is pictograms. So again, you could use that. You could use that in some way if you were, you know, depending on your magical working, what your magical working was about, and depending on how clever and creative you were. But I'm sure you could use that. Perhaps when you go somewhere, the disabled toilet is always out of use, or someone else is using it that perhaps shouldn't be, not that you'd be able to tell, that it's always flooded and it's out of order, I don't know, but perhaps you could work that into a spell for successful travel and you're a disabled traveller. Ideograms, they come up next. So this is a simplified picture which has been selected by agreement or custom. So if I give you a couple of examples, then that you'll be able to understand that. There'll be some context for that. So for example, a no entry sign, or for example, a red heart meaning love. Now, I would think that these obviously differ, don't they, from culture to culture, but I think that some of them could also span culture to culture, but they have been formed, I guess, over time by agreement, by custom. And I think those ones are really, really interesting. And again, you could use those, you know, a red heart if you were doing a self-love spell, or a confidence spell or something like that. You could factor that into your spell. So even if you were writing a simple petition, you could decorate that with red hearts. I mean, magic can be as complex or as simple as you wish to make it. So next we have icon. Now, an icon represents objects and their functions. So we're not talking religious icons here. We're talking about the function that something has, something that is logical. And these are mainly used in technology. So for example, the first one that springs to mind is the Wi-Fi signal. We have that on our phones. It tells us, you know, what our Wi-Fi signal is doing, whether it's good or bad. And I think about this one because we have shockingly bad internet because of the type of house that we live in. Our modem is up in the loft. That's the only plug-in place to put it. And so I'm always looking at that little Wi-Fi icon to see how that piece of technology is performing. And obviously we see that icon on paperwork. So, you know, like on advertising for broadband and internet, that is an icon related to technology and is about something and its functions. So the next thing is a rebus. Now this represents a spoken sound. So the best example of this one would be an I, a heart, and an NY. So I love New York, and that has become quite a common symbol. You will see that around. That might not spring to mind immediately as a symbol, but I guess over time it has become a symbol, hasn't it? That's something we do see around, and we have the understanding that it means I love New York. Now, you can also have pictures that represent a sound or word that have an unrelated meaning. So for example, you could have an image of a bee, which is spelled B-E-E, and then you could have the word happy, and that symbol would mean be happy. But of course, the buzzy bee and the word bee, they're different words and they're spelt differently, but this still works. We have an understanding, we understand this idea that's being represented, this idea that is being conveyed to us, be happy. So that is called a rebus. A phonogram is a symbol that represents a spoken sound. They are the letter symbols that comprise a sound. They are made up of one letter or letter teams. So there are two sounds in the word high, as in you go up high. There are two phonograms. So I think this is possibly the most complex one, and probably the one that we don't really think about and we don't really sort of have a known association with. This was new to me. I didn't know what a phonogram was. The next one, and this is probably my favourite, is a typogram. So this is a deliberate use of typography. So if I said to you dingbats, I think you would know what a dingbat is. They're often in quizzes, and they were very popular when I was younger. You would see them in magazines, and yeah, if you do a pub quiz or anything like that, there's quite often a dingbat round. So this is a visual expression of an idea using text usually and little images. So they cunningly disguise names, phrases, ideas, sayings. I'm going to put one up on the screen so that you can see. So somewhere over the rainbow. Very, very simple, very, very clever. So that is a typogram, also known as a dingbat. And I don't know where the word dingbat came from, whether it was like a book of these, you know, I don't know if it's like a brand name dingbat. I don't know where that came from, so that would be something interesting to check out. But again, you could use this in Magick. I'm sure you could think of lots of applications. This would be a great way to spend some time thinking about what you want to achieve, which again just adds to the spell. You're sending your energy towards it. You're working on that sort of mental and astral planes. You're imagining an outcome, and then you are forming a clever poetic sort of representation of that concept and that idea, and then you're drawing it onto paper. So I think dingbats would work really, really well for Magick. And then finally we have logo. And before I started this video, I was going to say that, you know, you could use all 7 types perhaps, except for the logo. But actually, if you worked for one of these companies, so a logo represents a brand or a product. If you worked for one of these companies, say you worked for Apple, and you wanted to do a spell related to your job, I guess actually you could use a logo. So logos, let's think of them. So let's think of Google and Apple and Starbucks coffee and HBO and McDonald's and NASA. They are logos, they are brands. When we see their logo, we know what that means, we know what they offer, we know what they represent. So why is this relevant, any of this, to being a witch? Well, again, I've mentioned how we can use these in Magick. Historically, we've always used symbols, and in a modern setting, we use them a lot. I bet you could think of at least 5 symbols used within witchcraft or paganism. Easy. I expect you could probably come up with 10 or more with a little bit more effort. So let's have a think. So the pentacle, the pentagram, the Arwen, the helm of Or, the goddess symbol, the triple goddess, the spiral, the cauldron, the triquetra or trinity knot, Thor's hammer. The list really, really goes on and on and on. The witch's foot, for example. I'm trying to think if I can come up with any more that I didn't write down. The peace symbol, the Om. There are so many that we use. What do we use them for within modern witchcraft and magic? Well, we use them for protection, we use them for healing, we use them to summon and banish spirits. Excuse me, they are called seals. We can use them within exorcisms to deter negative forces. We can use them to decorate things just for the pure pleasure of it, to remind us of our path and to remind us of our own personal magic and power that we have, to remind us of our authentic selves perhaps. They represent things in spells, so you might do a money spell and you use a $ or a pound sign carved into a candle or drawn on a piece of paper. We use them for protection and good luck simultaneously. So I'm thinking of sort of apotropaic magic, where we, for example, might use a horseshoe. So they are considered lucky, they are considered to attract good fortune and to repel bad luck. We might use them for comfort. You know, it might be comforting for us to wear a cross or a pentacle. We use symbols to relay messages. So if I were to be buried, I might have a pentagram on my grave, and that relays the message that I was a follower of the craft. We use them to heal. We use them for all sorts of reasons, and sometimes people use symbols purely because they like them, because they like the shape of it or how it looks, or There's just something about it, and that's the only reason that they use one. So what do? We've already spoken about at the beginning of the video how they represent the essence of something. They represent a concept or an idea, and they do relay this to our subconscious minds, our unconscious minds, our psyche, our deep down in us. They relay that concept or that message in a simple way that we understand, which is why sigils are very, very powerful, potent magic, and they're very simple to use. So when I think about symbols, I think of two people. I think of Carl Jung and his work on archetypes, and it all gets a bit complex with him. He considered a sign to be something known and a symbol to be something unknown, something that cannot be made quite clear or precise, whereas I feel like symbols are the opposite of that almost. So for example, the Christ being the symbol of the archetype, the self. So, but anyway, the other person I think of is Austin Osman Spare, who was a British artist and occultist, and he very much brought this idea of sigils into our consciousness. He was the guy that made sigils popular. So what is the difference between signs, symbols, sigils, seals? A symbol is universal. It's all the things that I've just explained. So like a red heart, for example. A sign, that can be two things. Obviously that can be like an omen, I saw it as a sign of things to come, and we use those a lot, don't we, within witchcraft? We look out for signs. Or it is an ideogram, so like a no entry sign, or it can be a gesture. So this is a sign, we might call that a sign. A seal is something different altogether. This is something that has been created to summon or banish spirits, or to represent the spirit or a spirit, the spirit of something. So this is part of tradition, part of ceremonial magic, and they are probably used less by fewer people. And then we have sigils. And they are a highly personal magic. Now, I've had people argue with me about this before, and I would say that what they are describing are seals. So when they talk about the seal of Solomon is a seal. A sigil is something that you would create personally yourself with a method, and then often sigils are destroyed and forgotten about. So you charge them, you use them, and then you forget about them. You might create a personal sigil and keep it and use it, and perhaps, I don't know, like embroider it into your clothes and stuff like that. But again, you want to forget that. You want to forget and allow your subconscious to take on the information of that, why you created it, how you created it, and then to have that stored, and you just forget and go about your everyday life. That is a sigil. So when you see books of sigils, they're symbols. If they are being used universally by other people, they're symbols. If that is something that's being seen and duplicated and used by others, that is a symbol. It's not a sigil. A sigil is personal magic that you have created that is very powerful. So what symbols are used most in witchcraft? Well, pentacle, the pentagram, they have some history to them, and they are used by lots of people and lots of cultures and lots of religions throughout time. So the word pentacle originally, apparently, meant any symbol that protects against evil spirits, and it comes from the word pentacle, meaning a jewel or ornament hung around the neck. But also, we do know that it comes from the Greek word translated to pentagrammon, which is broken down to 5 and line. So it's something that has got 5 lines. Pentalpha is sometimes used in place of pentagram. This is a 17th century revival of a post-classical name for the shape. So it's a star. It's a star, it's a pentagram, it's a pentalpha, and in a circle, it's a pentacle. So again, that pentagram, it's a symbol, isn't it? It represents something, it conveys a message. So what do you think about when you think of pentagram? I think of I think of protection, I think of witchcraft, I think of the elements and spirit, and I think of the natural world, and I think of it being something that I'm a part of. So actually that one symbol has lots of different concepts and ideas that is portraying. And actually, truthfully, that pentagram could mean a completely different thing to someone else. So if we think about someone who doesn't know about witchcraft, who perhaps wants to believe that it's bad, they will interpret that symbol completely differently to, say, perhaps I do. So very, very interesting. I suppose in that sense, they are subjective, aren't they? Then, you know, they do have meanings, but it depends on the viewer. People can have different feelings about symbols, and I think this is why I find them so interesting. So I thought we'd look quickly at the history of the pentagram. So we know that it has appeared on Sumerian pottery. They were used in the Langzhou culture from China. The ancient Greeks used them. Christians have an association with a pentagram. They represent the 5 senses and the 5 wounds of Christ. German folklore, and as such they quite often appear in Pennsylvanian Dutch hex signs. So hex, not as in to hex someone, but from the word zex, meaning 6. So they appear in this wonderful folk art. And how can we use these symbols? How can we use these symbols in the craft? Have a little think. There are so many different ways, so many applications of them. It's only our imagination that limits us, like anything. So we can use them on candles, we can draw them on petitions, we could have them tattooed on ourselves, we could use symbols in grimoires and journals, we could use them as shorthand. It might be quicker to scribble down a heart than the word love, for example. We could sew them into things. We can use them as decoration, so candles, bed covers, hair accessories, cushions, clothes, on a dog collar for a dog, you know, absolutely. We can put the symbols absolutely anywhere. We could use them in glamour magic, so when you're putting your foundation on, you can draw a symbol, or your moisturiser. You could have them on your nails before you paint over your nails, so you could have them so that you know there are symbols on them. You could paint the symbols initially, let them dry, and then paint over the top, or you could go to a nail artist and actually have those symbols put on as decoration. You can use them on your device screens, you know, your computer, your iPad, your iPhone. You could create wrapping paper with symbols on, with a message, with, you know, it could be something like love or happiness, and you could wrap up a friend's paper with the wrapping paper. Obviously you'd have to tie in your intention as to the fact that they're going to undo that paper, but you know, you can get creative. Put them on your children's school bags, maybe discreetly, like under the strap or something, pencil cases. Mark them with your finger on a plate or a cup before you serve up food. Put them on doors and windows with, you know, water, or with like a herbal wash that you're using. Use them on altars. You'll find so many symbols in tarot cards. That's the one place I can think of that is full of symbols and symbolism. You can use them absolutely anywhere. You could draw a symbol on a stone and carry it with you as a charm. They are tools, so you can use them in so many different ways, So in conclusion, we have used symbols for many, many hundreds of years, so many different types and in so many different ways, and they are somewhat personal to us. Even symbols that are used, you know, by many hundreds and thousands of people, they still have that meaning to us, which might be deep, it might be very profound, and it might be very, very different to the next person. They are free-flowing and intuitive and creative, I think. I don't think there is a right or a wrong way actually to use symbols, perhaps with the exception of sigils. They are fun, they are free, they are uncomplicated, and they have so many different applications. So I really, really love them. I'd love to know what you think of symbols. Do you use them in your craft? How do you use them? Have you found there to be one that you find particularly lucky or particularly protective? I would love to know more about your use of symbols and your opinion of them. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. It is really, really helpful and it only takes a couple of seconds. Okay, I'm sending you so much love. Thank you for watching. Many blessings.